All right, welcome to Two Blondes and a Brokerage. Today we're going to talk about what everybody's talking about, is are we in a bubble in real estate?
Yeah, this is actually a big topic of conversation among lenders and realtors and clients, and I think everyone has concerns, rightfully so, but we just wanted to address some of the reasons that we're not in a bubble. And you know, obviously homes are appreciating, prices are increasing, but there's a lot of reasons why we're not in a bubble, and a few of those would just be that. So yes, homes are appreciating, prices are increasing, but demand is still extremely high, inventory is still extremely low, wages are actually increasing as well, especially in Colorado. So it's not that only homes are increasing and wages are not increasing to match, wages are also increasing. And then people are really just in a really different equity position than they ever were in 2008. I think it's something crazy, like over 60% of homes nationwide are completely paid off. So as a nation as a whole, we're seeing, just a way different equity position. And in Colorado, obviously we know if you own a home in the last couple of years, you've seen insane equity. And so I think what people are failing to realize is that even like, okay, let's say we see some crazy crash, something happens, the apocalypse, whatever. Mm-hmm. People are in such a different position equity-wise that if something were to happen, they could just sell their home, use that equity, purchase another home, and then still have money left over. And so I think that it's really important that when we talk about things like a bubble, we take those things into consideration, because it's just not the same as it was in 2008. And I'm sure you can speak to lending requirements are a little bit different than they were back then,
which is a good thing. And we were talking earlier, it's interesting to see what we've gone through in the last 2 years, right? So when a pandemic hits and how it affects not just housing but everything, but yet we're coming to this full circle of people have cash and people have equity and they have investments and they were smart about what they did, and it's not just a small portion, it's a large portion of people. And whether we hit this crash, which I don't think will ever happen, but again, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know, but there's a very odd realm of kind of where we're sitting, which is why it is important. Or you hear somebody on the news, or on 9 News yesterday, they had, I can't remember his name, but he was a very well-known realtor in Denver, and he came on and he said, well, we're in a hot market. And it made me cringe a little bit, because we hear that all the time. We're in this hot market and it's just on fire, and it's like, yes, it's great, we all are doing what we do, but we're not in a hot market. We are in a market where we are in vast different, like you said, we are extremely low in inventory, we're extremely high in all these buyers and all these sellers. So there is no hot or cold, there is no bubble, there is no burst. It just is what it is, and we're kind of just navigating this little bit of a roller coaster that seems to be on a pretty long high. But if you look at buyers and sellers that are trying to work in this market, it happens all day, every day. You and I see it.
Yeah, more under contracts than ever. Yeah.
We'll go a week where it's like, okay, there's no inventory. Okay, we wrote 5 offers and nothing's happening. It's just this kind of like heave of where we're at, but there's no bubble, there's no hot. It just is the market that we're in. And it's important to realize that there are people in a lot of different equity positions. In 2008 to 2022, I mean, that's a very large gap of time.
Right.
But it has trended and gone to shown where we're settling in at. We were kind of stuck in this like belly of a sway, and now we're sitting on the high. So yes, it's going to come down, but it's never going to plummet like I think we ever saw in 2008.
And I actually was reading that people that owned a home in 2008 worth $400,000, let's say, if they still own that home today, it's worth 150% more than it was in 2008.
Isn't that crazy?
So even things, like let's say, that crash that did happen then. And by the way, in Colorado, we only saw 8% negative appreciation. That was our worst ever. So you think 8% negative appreciation, when we're seeing appreciation upwards of 20, 25% in some areas of the Denver metro area, like it doesn't really offset, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So ownership in general, as long as you can afford to hold on to it, real estate will always turn around and be a great investment. And I think it's important that we talk about, there's people talking about recession, and I think we like to forget that we saw a recession in 2020, but it didn't impact the housing market the way that people associate with recessions because of 2008. So just because a recession happens doesn't mean that the housing market is negatively impacted. And I think that's important to remember, because we are possibly approaching another recession this year even. And so as that happens, right, as rates are adjusted, and so things slow down, as we reach the top of the affordability index, and things probably will slow down when that happens, because when interest rates rise to a certain point, certain buyers are just going to be knocked out of the market, right? And then we see buyer frustration, and so things will probably slow down around June is what we're thinking. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because that's normally when we see the market really uptick, but we are seeing that now instead in February, right? We saw that starting in January instead of March. So I think we just started our spring season a little bit early. And so as people talk about possibly a recession nearing because of the Fed, whatever, I just think we need to remember, like, take a breath. That's not necessarily going to impact the housing market the way we might have previously thought. And then, just to know that always reaching out to an advisor, right? Like a trusted real estate advisor or a lender or someone that knows these trends a little bit more in depth than maybe just like the average consumer, I think is huge, because this is still, it's always a great time to buy, right? And so this whole year we're gonna experience that. It's always gonna be a great time to buy.
Well, and this is our livelihood, this is our business, this is what we work really hard at, and so to admit to you guys openly that we know things are coming, it's because it is ever changing. That is our industry. And regardless of a recession, of a pandemic, of anything like that, it truly is just, it's the way that the cookie crumbles. And I've said this a couple times on here, but knowledge is power. And whether that's us, whether that's, someone that you trust, your CPA, whoever you have your stocks, your Bitcoin, whatever you're investing in, get the right information, because what you're seeing maybe like from social media or even on the news, like I said, 9 News, I mean, when you see these very high producing agents saying comments like that one word to somebody who might not know much about real estate just is automatically turned off. And it's not that we, are fighting for this business, but it just is sad when people get discouraged because they don't have the right information.
Right. So if you do have any questions about what we talked about today, would like more information, or to be put in touch with an advisor, please let us know. We are happy to assist you in any way that we can.
Yep. Talk to you guys soon.